Hey everybody, today we're going to be doing the general maintenance video for the Planet Eclipse Geo 2 or the Geo 2.1. Now I want to start off by apologizing for a couple of things. One is my voice. I lost my voice while on vacation the last couple of weeks, so I apologize for that if it's a little bit annoying. But other than that, the second thing I want to apologize for is the time it's taken to get this up. As a couple of you know, I tried uploading this for like 2 days straight before I went on vacation, and the video was rendering wrong, or the recording was messed up, or I'm not sure exactly what happened, so I decided to just completely redo it once I got back, and that's why the delay on getting this video out to you guys. Otherwise I had it up like a month ago, so I want to apologize for that as well. First thing we're going to go over is the general maintenance of the Geo 2 or Geo 2.1. What we're going to be covering is the bolt assembly and all this, and basically in the top tube, the only tube. We're going to do all the maintenance on there and the general maintenance on the regulator. We're not going to mess with any of the specialty things like the solenoid or the ASA. That might be in a later video if I do it, but it's not necessary, okay? That's just the only time you're ever going to mess with that is if you're having a problem with your gun already. So, first thing you're going to want to need, is the Planet Eclipse Geo 2, obviously. You're going to want to have a grease. I prefer hater sauce. You're welcome to use whatever you use, Planet Eclipse lube, whatever you have, that works great. The only reason why I use hater sauce is because it's the only thing I've used for 3 years straight, and I've never had a problem with it. Works great on all my spool valve guns, so you know, I'm going to use it as long as it keeps working. Next thing you're going to want to need is an O-ring pick for a couple of O-rings that you might have to take off. A nice clean microfiber rag if you have one. The only other thing you might want to have handy is the manual in case you forget how something goes, or you can pretty much refer to this video, or you might want to have a spare set of O-rings for any problems you're going to have. If you have any leaking issues, you're going to want to go ahead and just replace the O-rings. No sense in trying to fix it, you know, by just replacing one. You might as well put a full rebuild kit in there and make sure everything's going to work properly. Other than that, I think that covers everything. There's no tools needed to disassemble this. So we're going to go ahead and get started. First thing you want to do is obviously remove the barrel. Just get it out of the way so we don't have to mess with that while doing the maintenance. And I'm going to go ahead and set that on my bench. Okay, so first thing we're going to do is go ahead and do the bolt and the bolt guide, whatever you want to call it, all the internals on the top tube. So you're going to just want to remove the bolt by simply turning the back cap counterclockwise. And this is a toolless design. If it's locked up, you can use an Allen key in the back, but most generally you're never going to have any problem with just removing with your fingers because it is toolless. So once you've got that loosened, the bolt, what I like to call the bolt shaft and guide and everything, is right here. Go ahead and set that down, and then you're going to want to put your finger down the breech and push the bolt itself out, and kind of gotta do a and just kind of pull that out. Here is your can and bolt, and we're going to go ahead and set that down. Now, for now, we don't need the Geo 2, so we're going to go ahead and set that to the side here. And what we're going to do is basically take our microfiber rag and wipe off any lubricant that's already on there, any grease that was left over from, you know, whenever you used it last. Also want to do that on the bolt guide, or what I call the bolt guide. Just clean all the excess grease off. And you want to make sure that you go ahead and take the bolt out of the can, and basically this is where the O-ring pick comes in handy if you want to take that front O-ring off there, so you can get the bolt to come out of the can itself. So go ahead and remove that, clean that off with your microfiber, and then your bolt will actually slide out the back, no problems. Then you can go ahead and clean off your bolt a little bit more thorough than before. And also you want to make sure you clean out the O-ring in the inside there. You can barely see it. You want to make sure to clean that out. You don't want any old grease to be on there. Okay, now once you've got that done, we're going to go ahead and re-grease the entire gun. Basically any O-ring you see, you're going to want to put a fair amount of grease on there, depending on how much you prefer to use. I like to have a thin coating over the whole O-ring, just enough to where you can see it kind of shine, but not just loads of it, you know, sitting there, gobs of it just sitting on the O-ring. You don't want that. Then you're going to want to put a little bit on this back one here just so it seals up nice. you know, this is basically just a static O-ring. It doesn't actually move. So you just, you know, nice thin layer on there. And then I like to put a little bit over the bolt guide itself, just because the bolt does slide over that. Okay, so now that once that's done, we're going to go ahead and put a little bit of grease here on the can, and we have the 2 O-rings right there on the front. So put a nice amount there. These do move, so I'm going to have just enough. You know, it's not real picky on it, but I like to be picky on it, so it takes me a little bit longer. And then go ahead and put it on the second O-ring as well. And get whatever excess you end up with in the groove there. Okay, so the next thing we're going to go ahead and do is put a little bit of grease on the O-rings on the bolt here, the back 2 O-rings. And like I said, if you see any kind of wear with these O-rings, you'll want to replace them, even if you're not having leaking issues. I still recommend replacing them, and it doesn't hurt to replace them after so many uses of the gun, because it's just less problems you're going to have with it later. You don't want, you know, to find a leaking issue after you've taken the gun apart. It's just better to replace everything like you did, you know, just to be safe. Now you're going to want to put a little bit of a coating on the inside O-ring here, and then we'll put a little bit on the bolt itself, and that'll kind of lubricate it a little bit more than what it is. So once you've done that, you can go ahead and stick the bolt in and put, like I said, a tiny bit. I like to put a tiny bit here on the bolt itself, and that'll put it on the O-ring inside. And the next thing you're going to want to do is go ahead and reinstall that last O-ring on the bolt itself. Maybe. And this can be a little bit difficult to do, but we can get it here, as long as the bolt quits sliding. So just kind of, okay, now that we got that on, we're going to put a light coating on that as well, and we're almost done with the maintenance of the bolt and bolt guide assembly. So once you've got a nice, you know, just a smooth amount on the O-ring, you'll probably be good. Just depends on your preference, you know, how much grease you like to use, but that's pretty much how I do the general maintenance on my bolt. Now this is going to be different per gun, obviously. This is just how I like to do it on the Geo 2. And once you're done with that, clean your hands off there and go ahead and stick the bolt back into the gun and put it back in, and make sure to finger tighten this down until it's snug. You don't want to use an Allen key to tighten this down, otherwise you'll not be able to get it off later. So just, it helps to actually catch the threads. So go ahead and just put it finger tight over here, and you should be good to go. Then you want to clean off your gun of any excess grease you got on the gun itself. Okay, now we're going to go down to the regulator. First thing you're going to want to do is remove the macro line, and then unscrew the top portion of the regulator from the gun. And this again should be accessible with just using, you know, the strength in your hand. You don't need to use any tools or anything like that. Again, we're going to go ahead and set the gun to the side because we don't need that. And now we have it to the regulator. Now inside the regulator, if you kind of tap it, you're going to find the piston and the regulator spring, and then that's all that's internally, literally, okay? You can take this, I guess you could say middle portion, or whatever you want to call it here, off if you want to clean it or anything, but you really don't need to get down into those at all. This is your adjustment screw through here, and basically there's nothing serviceable in there, so you don't even need to mess with it. So what you need to do is go ahead and clean off your piston and clean off the spring, simply using your rag again here just to clean that off of any excess grease. Go ahead and clean off the inside of the regulator itself. Now mine is fairly clean. I've not actually used it for a couple of months here, but we're hopefully going to be playing here real soon, and I want to have it ready for everything. So yours might seem a little bit dirtier than what mine is right now. Okay, so next thing you're going to want to do is I'm going to go ahead and just screw this back on to the regulator, the bottom portion of the regulator into the sleeve, and then we're going to go ahead and put a fair amount of grease on the O-ring on the piston, as you can see right there, and we're just going to put a fair amount on there to keep it from wearing or tearing or leaking, basically is what we're going to do here. So like I said, it really depends on your personal preference on how much grease you use. I prefer just a thin coating to where it's not gobbing up and it's not going to make my internals dirty. Okay, so after you've done that, I like to put a little bit on the piston itself just to keep the spring from wearing on the sides. Just like that. Put your spring on, and I'm going to go ahead and clean my hands off again here. Okay, and then you're going to want to drop this down. Now, the way you're going to want to do this basically is you're going to take your regulator and drop it over with the stem facing down into the regulator like this. So go ahead and just do that like that, and then push it down, and then go ahead and screw that back onto your gun. And again, you're just going to want to use hand strength here. You don't want to over tighten this at all. Just snug it down with your hand, and then you can rotate your collar. Now, I recommend rotating your collar counterclockwise into the position, otherwise you might run the risk of unscrewing the sleeve from the bottom half of your reg. It's happened to me once or twice, and I just prefer to do it this way. So then once you've got it in position, you can just go ahead and stick the macro line back on, and this is a lot harder than it looks, guys, or maybe you just think I'm a wimp, but go ahead, slide that back in, hopefully, just like that, and you should be good to go. Okay, now if you have any leaking issues, again, you'll want to take it back apart, check all the O-rings for wear, any kind of nick or anything like that out of the O-ring. But other than that, you should be good to go, and that is the general maintenance. Okay, nothing else really needs to be done. The only other thing you can maintain is the solenoid and the ASA, and like I said, those are just serviceable for when you're having problems with them. I would not recommend them to be serviced at all unless you are having a leaking issue or something like that, or a Planet Eclipse tech tells you to. So other than that, those are the only two parts that you really need to maintenance yourself. If you do that every so often, you'll keep your gun up and running and not have any problems with it while you're out there playing. So I think that covers everything, guys. Thank you for watching. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments below. Definitely go check out my channel. If you haven't already, we got a lot of other videos up on the Geo 2, as well as many other paintball products up there on the channel, and we'll be getting lots more in the near future out there as well. So if you haven't already, hit subscribe. If you like my videos, rate it, like it, leave a comment if you have any questions, and also go check out my Facebook page at facebook.com, or excuse me, sorry, facebook.com/KNIS2me2, or facebook.com/my username. So go check that out if you haven't already. Thanks again, guys, for watching. Hopefully this has helped, and hopefully this has been of some use to you, and hope to see you in the next video. Thanks.